about the data types which are present in Java. So there are data types are broadly classified into two types. One is primitive data types and another one is non-primitive data types. In this video we are trying to focus only on primitive data types, and we will try to discuss in a detailed manner about the primitive data types using some examples, some use cases. So here primitive data types. So primitive means primary data type or basic data type. So if you are writing some program, and if your program needs some data to be manipulated or calculated or used for some other purposes, then you need to use the data types. So here 8 primitive data types are available in Java, so that are classified into two broad categories. One is Boolean and another one is numeric. So under Boolean category there is only one primitive data type which is called Boolean, small Boolean. So using this Boolean you can store either of two values, which is true or false. If your use case needs only two values, which is either true or false, then you could use Boolean primitive data type. So in our real life examples we would have used many electrical appliances in our home. For operating that electrical appliances we would have used a switch. So we will try to switch on or switch off. So we can relate that switch on and switch off with the Boolean true or false values. So Boolean can support only two values which are true or false. And then the second category is numeric. Under numeric it is broadly classified into two types, which is character and integral. So under character it supports only one primitive data type, which is called char, C-H-A-R. Some people call it as char, some people call it as char. So I will call it as char. So you might call it as a char, you might call it as a char or char. It depends on person to person. So here character. So character is used to hold a character. For example, we have many languages in this world. So English, Tamil, Telugu and etc. So each language has some unique alphabets. So each alphabet can be represented in Unicode. Unicode means we will try to discuss about Unicode in upcoming videos. For now just consider Unicode is a unique identifier for unique identification number or unique identification of alphabets like that. So it can be any language, for example German, Spanish, any language. Each language has some n number of characters. Every character would be represented in Unicode. So that Unicode would be stored in char, would be handled by char. So another category is integral. Integral means there are two integral categories broadly classified into two types, integer and floating. If you want to store only whole numbers without any decimal points, then you can choose the integer category. So under integer category there are 4 data types: byte, short, int, long. So byte, short, int, long, there are only few differences between byte, short, int, long. We will try to cover those differences once we come to this slide. So and then floating category. Under floating category there are two types, float and double. So both supports decimal points. If your use case has some requirement to store the decimal values or to play with some decimal values, then you can either choose float or double. So you need to pick a best data type based on your use case. And then non-primitive data types. Non-primitive means these data types are formed using some primitive data types. For example, string data type has been formed using character data types. For example, if you want to store a name, for example Rakesh is the name, R-A-K-E-S, 6 characters needs to be stored in a stretch, which means in a sequence. In such a case we can use string data type. So in string data type all characters would be stored in a sequence manner. That string data type would use the character data type internally for storing the characters, sequence of characters. And we will try to discuss array and other stuff in the upcoming videos. Now we will see the differences between the primitive data types in a detailed manner. So primitive data types. So there are 8 primitive data types in Java. So first boolean, char, byte, short, int, long, float, and then double. This long is a small. All characters are in small case. L is not a in uppercase, it's a small case. So please note that L, O, N, G all are in small case. So all the characters in primitive data types are in small case. So for boolean, the default value is false, the size is 1 bit, the range is true or false. So you can either store true or false. And then character stores only Unicode. So this is a default value. You might see there's some Greek and Latin. When we discuss about the Unicode in detailed manner, you could understand this character default value in a detailed manner. For now, just consider it as a default value for character. And then the memory requirement for char is 2 bytes. So it occupies 2 bytes. So 1 bit is the primary representation of memory, which is a basic building block of the memory. 8 bits make a byte. So 2 bytes means 16 bits are required to store a character in a variable array. So the range is 0 to 65536. So overall nearly 65,537 characters can be stored using character. So and then byte. So the default value is 0, size is 1 byte, and the range is -128 to 128. So if suppose if you were use case needs to store value between 128 to 120 something like that, then you could use the byte data type. And then short 0 to 2 bytes, and the range is -32,768 to 32,767. Integer 0 4 bytes and -2147 something range to ... and then long 8 bytes. So this is the range. So minus range and a positive range. So this is positive 9223 372 036 up to positive, and then float 4 bytes, double 8 bytes. So these are the some primitive data types that are widely used in Java. If suppose if I am giving some use case that suppose if you want to store some age, then which data type would be preferred? Please try to think for 2 seconds and then try to answer it. I think most of you answered correctly. Byte would be the best, because human age is always normally is from 0 to 100. So here 0 to 100 would be fit in byte data type itself. So you can either choose byte, short, int, long, but the most preferred one is byte. The reason behind it is we can save this size. So we will try to discuss more about in detail manner in upcoming videos.